My name is Jen Johnson. I am the research director here at the Becker County Museum, and we are in part of the research library, a part where a lot of the public doesn't get to see because it's kind of the staff only section for various reasons, some of which you will see today. Today we are going to talk about the churches of Becker County, and that'll lead into some of their cemetery indexes too. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about churches is because even though we have a wonderful research library here, we have a lot of gaps. And one of our biggest gaps is actually the churches of Becker County. We do have some are in book form. Right here we have Richwood Township, Minnesota, and this talks about the churches in that area. We have, of course, the Exo Cemetery book, which we did a cemetery walk earlier this year, and this was so helpful for the research. We have Audubon, we have Holy Rosary Catholic Church, and we have some centennials for like Shell Lake Emmanuel Lutheran. And then we also have, and these are some of my favorite to run into, is actually some stories that women of the area shared. Like we have Lois Flone's stories, many others who went to the church. On top of this, we also have some pictures. We have 2 binders of pictures of churches in the area, and most of them are of Detroit Lakes, which is great, but we are also the Becker County Museum, so one of the things we want to do, especially with the 150th anniversary coming up of Becker County and Detroit Lakes in 2021, is to gain as much information as possible for as many churches as we can. And I've started creating a list of the churches, and at the moment I'm up to about 90, and I don't think I've even gotten all the churches that Becker County has had from the beginning of 1871 going into close to the 150th. So if you look at this, it's just a variety of pictures, which is awesome. We have black and white, we have colored, we have postcards, we have churches that aren't standing anymore, we have churches that, you know, they built new ones, and we have pictures of the older churches. We have some choir groups. So yeah, it's just a lot of fun and interesting. We got, this is the Congregational Church in Detroit. You look, you might not be able to see it, but it actually says Detroit, Minnesota instead of Detroit Lakes, because prior to Detroit Lakes, the town was called Detroit. So this is early 1900s. So this book here is mainly Detroit Lakes churches. So when we go into this black photo album, we get Detroit Lakes churches and other ones. So if you see here, you got a nice big congregation, and let's see if it's written in the back. Nope. Unfortunately, it doesn't say the church, and that happens. So if you ever come into the research library and you want to look at photos of the churches, not all the churches are actually marked with the church it was, or maybe even where it's from. Some photos, we get them in the mail, and we have so many undocumented photos that it would be great for people to come in and say, I went to that church and here's a story, and I would be so happy to sit down and talk to you. The information, you can donate it to the research library, but you can also, we have scanning abilities, so you can give it to me, I can scan it and give you the originals back. And also, just a little secret, we kind of have coffee and tea and water here, so if you ever do want to sit down, I'd happily bring you some coffee. So now if we go into the files itself, let's pick one. We have one of the Richwood Union Church. And in this file, you can see that we have newspaper articles. The research library has newspapers from all areas in Becker County. We have Detroit Lakes Record, Tribune, Lake Park Journal, we have Frazee, And so a lot of times when we are researching and we're trying to build up our files, we'll go to the newspapers. And so you see this, we have a lot of handwritten, which I absolutely love, handwritten notes. We have notes about, I know some records are from the 1960s and they're actually minutes from church meetings. Some are handwritten notes about how the church was organized and started. And it's just a lot of valuable information. If we look at this file, this is the Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Audubon. It's got kind of just a couple little pieces of paper, which are older. It's a typewriter. They're kind of like tissue paper, so they're very fragile. And this is an acid-free folder, so it's not going to damage the document. And this actually talks about it's somebody's story about how they remember their relative helping to develop the church. So that's really neat. We go on to this folder here, and this is the Lakeview Union Church. We actually have a couple books. We have this, which is kind of like, from what I've seen, it's kind of regular to a journal, but it's also got meetings and little notes in it, and it's from 1910. So this is, super old and awesome, and something I've read a few pages of, and it was just really exciting to get back into that history and know what that person over 100 years ago was recording. We also have, like, this book is the register, and it talks like the register of the deacons, and they have names here, and we have pastors of the church. Some of these books we'll get, and they'll have a lot of empty space, but that doesn't take away from the value of what we're trying to preserve for Becker County. And here we have Register of Sunday School Superintendents. So you can go and you can see who was the superintendent of the Sunday school. And maybe if you're going through that book or you're watching this, you recognize the name and you're like, hey, I'm related to that person. You can come in and you can actually see the handwriting and the name, and that's pretty cool. Going through some more here, let's go with United Methodist. Some of our files, like you see here, United Methodist is pretty thick, and we have good history that was donated or we found. Like, we have some books, and of course newspaper clippings, and then a lot of our files, they're pretty thin, like what I showed you with the Audubon one. And of course, when people often think of churches, there are also the cemeteries. So we have a lot of cemetery indexes that go with the churches, like this is Exo. And this is, along with the book, we have just the indexes that'll tell you who's buried, their birth date, their death date. Some of them will tell you where they're buried. Some of them will have information on the person. And it's a great resource to have, not only for research purposes, but for anyone that kind of comes in and looks into, just the history of Becker County, or they're looking for a relative, or they want to know where somebody. We get a lot of people that come in and they want to know where their grandparents are buried, or their aunts and uncles, and so we're able to come through our cemetery indexes and generally find that. So if you have information about churches and you would like to donate them to the Becker County Research Library, whether you're willing to donate the originals or you want us to scan and give you the originals back, it is 100% possible. You just need to stop in or give me a call. Thank you.